Hey everyone, welcome to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. All the fresh details are in this video, so before we dive in, remember to subscribe and share to keep this family growing. Thank you for being here. The first public appearance of Elsen after her operation became the talk of the town, but the real shock came from what she said right as she opened her eyes. According to whispers from the ward, the first name she breathed was Barisard. After days of quiet, she reportedly murmured, "Is Baris here? I want to see him." Those words rippled through the room, stunning her loved ones and even the medical team who had been watching her recovery with meticulous care. Their rare sightings together offset over recent months had already sparked chatter about a chill between them, and this sudden plea didn't just fuel the speculation, it set it ablaze. In the hours after the surgery, family and close friends waited anxiously in the hospital lounge, speaking in hushed tones and glancing at the doors every few minutes. But the behind-the-scenes buzz fixated on one detail: Elsen's specific wish to see Baris. The mood shifted instantly. Even those who had been trying to keep things orderly could feel an emotional tremor move through the corridor. And then the inevitable update arrived: Baris had cleared his schedule and was on his way. An eyewitness later recalled, he came in fast, head down under a black hood, phone in one hand, worry written all over his face. But when he stepped into her room and saw her eyes open, the way she smiled, the whole atmosphere changed. It felt like something intangible connected them, something nobody else could touch. Those who have followed their story know the rumor that never quite fades, a deep, quiet bond that started on set and supposedly outlived the cameras. Nothing was ever confirmed, nothing denied outright. It was a silence that almost seemed intentional, a boundary that fans and the press alike kept testing. So hearing that the first person she asked for in her most fragile moment was Baris, well, that silence was suddenly louder than ever. No official statements have been made about what was said during his visit, but the corridors collected fragments. A nurse spoke of an intimacy that didn't need explanation. The minute she saw him, she reached for his hand. He told her to breathe, to take it easy. For a while, no one spoke. It belonged to the two of them. The question practically asked itself, was an old closeness slipping back into the light? It's a story that has been written in soft glances and careful distance for years, never fully told, never fully dismissed. While publicists for both sides were contacted for comment, phones stayed silent and emails went unanswered. Yet the same whisper network that carried the first news insisted that a joint statement was being prepared. Whatever it says, it's clear that the first words after anesthesia shook more than hospital walls. They rattled tabloids, reignited fan forums, and turned hospital corridors into a stage. As soon as it spread that Elsen had woken up asking for him, the building's pulse quickened. Security tried to keep things calm, guiding family members and fielding the few journalists who had already sniffed out the story. Someone muttered, "He's coming," and the hum grew louder, as if everyone was holding their breath at once. Then came the soft commotion at the entrance, the familiar figure moving quickly, face shadowed by a hood, the kind of low-profile stride that always makes a bigger noise than it intends to. People noticed the tension in his jaw, the way he didn't waste a second. Inside the room, the first moment was almost motionless. She glanced up, pale but smiling, and he paused, as if caught by a current that only he could feel. He reached for her hand, and the worry in his face shifted into something gentler. "I'm glad you came," she whispered. Without breaking eye contact, he answered, "Did you really think I wouldn't?" The air felt dense with unfinished sentences. Seeing that the two of them were fully present in a world only they understood, the staff quietly stepped out, pulling the door close to give them space. What followed, well, it was soft, and it was heavy. Despite his own obligations, he'd been tracking her progress all day, trading messages with the team, never straying too far from his phone. She was exhausted, eyes still flickering from the sedatives, but she was alert in that way where the heart knows exactly where to land. Details of what they said didn't reach the corridor, but when a nurse stepped out to fetch water, she described a rhythm. At times, Elsen's eyes welled with quick, surprising tears, and at other moments Baris would trace little circles on the back of her hand to ground her. Outside, curiosity gave way to a collective hush when soft laughter filtered through the door. Those close enough to hear said the sound shifted the whole corridor, loosening shoulders and letting people breathe. Apparently, after a few quiet minutes, they drifted into memories that only the two of them could truly own: mornings on set when everything felt absurd, an inside joke about a coffee order gone wrong, scenes that turned into shared history. "You're still making me laugh," she said, voice fragile but playful. And he answered with a grin you could practically hear, "That used to be my specialty. Don't act surprised." There was warmth between them that defied explanation, a current that both steadied and exposed. Even after hours had passed, people were still gathered, passing along what little they knew. Fans outside tapped updates into their phones, while journalists debated how to handle a story that shifted with every new whisper. Those closest to the door noticed other details too. The way he leaned in whenever she grew tired, the way she rested her head against his shoulder for a moment that felt both private and inevitable. Their eyes would meet and then retreat, as if to say what words might break. What they shared didn't announce itself. It rested quietly in the room, undeniable and unlabeled. For those asking whether that first request was just a morale lifter, the answer seemed larger than encouragement. It was need, pure and simple. In that room, time softened. Outside, footsteps came and went, pages turned on clipboards, someone coughed, phones buzzed. Inside, it was the two of them moving between soft laughter and thoughtful silence, letting their history breathe without forcing a definition. Her smile, faint and brave, made her look vulnerable in a way that drew him closer, as if he could guard her from whatever still hurt. When it seemed like he might have to leave, the room tensed again. The fire of the day had burned down to embers. He squeezed her hand and said, almost under his breath, "I'm here until you're yourself again." Those around them later said the words landed like a promise with memory inside it. She answered with a small light in her eyes, something that acknowledged the truth everyone else could feel, that what tied them together had depth beyond easy labels, beyond the stories others had built for them. By then, the hospital felt like a character in the drama. Doors opening and closing with measured rhythm, whispers stopping at the threshold of one room, then starting up again in the next. People debated whether what they had seen was friendship, something like it, or something that refused to fit into a name. The only certain thing was this: she woke up asking for him, and he came. Earlier in the day, those who'd been with her said she had drifted in and out, fighting the heaviness that followed the operation. Each time she stirred, there was a new wave of questions, and her team handled them with patience. But everything shifted with that first clear request. Whatever was between them, however it was living, it drew her toward him. He didn't try to explain anything on arrival. He didn't need to. He just stood in the doorway for a heartbeat and then crossed to her as if pulled by gravity. Some accounts say they didn't speak for a while at all, that it was first a conversation of breaths and glances. She watched him with gratitude that melted into relief, and he answered with a steady calm that people who know him say is his way: few words, solid presence, unshakable when it counts. When words did come, they were soft, unhurried, drifting between present worries and memories that made them both smile despite the fatigue. Outside, fans traded theories: were they rebuilding, or had something always been there, patiently waiting for the right moment to prove it existed? The most loyal followers remembered the way their on-screen chemistry had nested inside the public imagination, how every red carpet glance turned into 1,000 threads online. But off-camera, they moved carefully, guarding their private worlds. That's what made the scene in that hospital feel so electric: no cameras, no lines, just a connection that didn't need a witness and yet somehow had one anyway. Hours later, a few staffers admitted they'd found themselves lingering near the door, pretending to check charts while really waiting for one of those tiny pieces of proof that what they were feeling in the air was real. When soft laughter returned, someone smiled without meaning to. When the room fell quiet again, the stillness felt kind, not cold. It was the stillness of two people who know when to talk and when to say nothing at all. Meanwhile, the outside world kept trying to push its way in. A cameraman tried his luck near the exit, only to be steered aside by a firm but polite guard. A journalist called a friend in publicity, who answered with the standard line, "No comment at this time," before hanging up, no doubt to make another call. Within that swirl, those closest to the situation dropped hints that something official might be coming. Whether it would clarify or complicate, no one could guess. By the end of the evening, the energy in the building had shifted from frantic to expectant. People stopped asking when he would leave and started wondering if he would. When he finally stepped out for a moment to speak with the doctor, his shoulders eased just a little, as if reassured by the updates. Then he went straight back in. He moved with the kind of purpose that told its own story. He wasn't there for attention. He was there because that's where he needed to be. Inside, she watched him cross the room and smiled in that small way that says more than a speech. They didn't have to perform. They didn't have to decide in that instant what their story was or what anyone would call it. All they had to do was be exactly as they were, two people who could laugh in the middle of fear, who could turn a minute into a memory without trying. The hospital walls knew it. The corridor felt it. And no matter what press release might land tomorrow, this was the only part that mattered tonight. So here's where things stand. What began as a routine recovery turned into a moment that pulled everything hidden into focus. The first name she chose, the way he came running, the quiet scene behind a closed door, none of it needs exaggeration to make it dramatic. It already is. Whether this is a new chapter or a reminder of one that never truly ended, time will write the lines. For now, all eyes are on the door of that room, listening for laughter, for silence, for anything that sounds like a promise kept. That's all from us today. If you liked the video, make sure you're subscribed to Turkish Spotlight Secrets and share it with friends who are following every twist and turn. See you in the next one.